From healing to high performance, this is the Warriors Ascent podcast. This episode is brought to you by Torch AI, unlocking human potential.
Well, all right, and welcome to the Warriors Ascent podcast with your hosts, Matt and Mike. So we've got another special guest, supporter, advocate, Steve Svetzka, yes, an alum of the program, yes. So Steve is somebody that we would affectionately term a twofer. So military, former military, and law enforcement. So Force Recon, pretty super tough dude, and then law enforcement. But, as he said, an alum, was the keynote speaker at our celebration dinner. He knocked everybody's socks off. He was quite the orator with a story to tell.
Poet, and I didn't even know it.
That's exactly. That's exactly it. Yeah. Not that I'd forgotten, but I'd kind of forgotten. Yes, you ended the evening with a very awesome poem.
A really good one.
Which I have I think we both have it in video form, and I've got the written as well. No, so absolutely. Anyway, dude, we're super jazzed to have you. This is going to be a great interview. So let's start, please. Tell us about your background, yourself, and what brought you to us.
I'll definitely try not to let you guys down. Thank you guys for the honor of inviting me. It's truly a privilege. I'm humbled, shocked. I don't think anyone wants to hear my stupid story, but
absolutely do.
So just kind of start off. I got into a lot of trouble in high school. I fought a lot, and got told by a few judges that you better do something, because if we see you here again, it's not going to be good for you. Gulf War kicked off. You can tell by the gray that I'm old. So this is back in 91, and me, same as a couple 100,000 other young men and women, ran down to the local recruiting station, and I signed up, and then went in active duty. And in the end of 91, actually, I was in the DEP program for a long time, and did 4 years active duty in the Marine Corps. I started off with Gulf Company, 2nd Battalion, 3rd Marines in the infantry. So you Army guys, it's a 0311, the equivalency to 11 Bravo. And then I did
bang bang.
Yeah, bang bang. And then I did one what we called a float with them, where we deployed and did a bunch of stuff on a Navy ship. Apparently, that's why we're a department of the Navy, the men's department. But it is the department of the Navy.
That's funny.
And then after I got back, I had the opportunity to take the recon indoctrination, and that was insane. I almost died. And I kind of wish I would have died. And then I did that for the remainder term of my first enlistment. And then I got out, did some just a reserve time, jumping around from here and there. And then I ended up going to 4th Force Reconnaissance in Reno, Nevada. And then in Hawaii as well. So the 4th Force is actually, they're in Honolulu as well as Reno. So that was the military side, and I got out and I actually had put in for a re-enlistment package, because I went back in active reserve shortly after 9/11, and then I was going through a divorce at the time. Put in a re-enlistment package to go to 2nd Force Reconnaissance. Had a bunch of buddies that went there, including a former team leader of mine, and then I also started testing with the state police for Arizona. One of the guys that was with Alpha Company, 3rd Recon, he had been on for about a year and a half at that point in time. He's like, hey, man, come here and test. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm going to do whatever comes first. And I thought for sure it was going to be the Marine Corps, because typically law enforcement, it's anywhere from 6 to 9 months for the testing. It's pretty long and drawn out. But lo and behold, Friday morning I was in Hawaii, and got a phone call that said, hey, Steve, this is so-and-so from the Arizona Department of Public Safety. No, it's short notice and all, but we have another seat that just opened up in the academy. It starts on Monday morning. Would you like it? And keep in mind, I was living in Honolulu, going through, separated and divorced at the time. So I ended up taking it. And that's what started off with my law enforcement career. From there, it just did the same thing, did patrol for a while. And then really, I was very, very fortunate and blessed to be able to test with the state SWAT team, where you typically have to be on for 3 years. And I'd been on for a year, just got off probation. And I just submitted a application and said, hey, this is what I did in the Marine Corps, so maybe it could help out and be an asset to the SWAT team. And they're like, well, we'll let you test, but that's it. We'll let you just go through the test. You're not actually going to be making the team. You got to be on for 3 years. I'm like, all right, cool. So I took the test, passed it, and then they were like, all right, well, we'll let you go to SWAT school, but you're not going to be on the team. You have to be here for 3 years. I'm like, okay, cool. I get to go to SWAT school. Awesome. So I went to SWAT school, and after that was done, they're like, well, I guess you're on the team. And so that worked out well. So I spent 8 years
It's always an exception,
doing that.
right?
Yeah. And I was pretty lucky with that. Saw a lot of pretty wild things with that, but most of my time in law enforcement, where I was involved in the officer-involved shootings and just some of the terrible, terrible things I've seen of what people do to each other, and some of the horrific accidents and stuff like that, came from being a detective. And a lot of them I was 4.5 years, I was with the U.S. Marshals Fugitive Task Force. I was on the full-time SWAT team, but there was me and one other guy that got assigned to the U.S. Marshals Fugitive Task Force. And our SWAT team was also the tactical resolution for when the marshals call SWAT, we would respond. So barricades, shootings, different things like that. So a lot of pretty wild stuff with that. Took a hiatus from law enforcement after about 10 years and went over to Afghanistan as part of a law enforcement professional program where I got to conduct basically criminal investigations. Is very similar to conducting an investigation on a criminal syndicate. So whether it was a large gang or something along that lines, and got to do that. So instead of them, seeing a dude planting a roadside bomb and just smoking them, they would try to
Build their network.
Yeah.
Find out
the
whole layer of it.
100. Yeah, it was just so we'd try to scoop them up instead, and then I would go in just like I equate it to, you see the dude on the corner selling dope. He's not making any money, and he's working for somebody that's not making very much money. It's the higher that you go up, and then you have to get to the decision makers, and so that's what we would do to try to develop assets and intel, which would eventually lead to getting certain members put on what's called the JPEL list. So it used to be called the kill and capture list, but apparently that was, mean. So they changed it to JPEL. I don't know. Maybe an officer would know more about that.
I'm trying to remember what that stands for. Yeah.
Just pretty nice guys.
Yeah, that's pretty. Yeah, that's it. So this was in 2013, 2014. So it was pretty cool. There was one situations where I was in Zabul, and the Georgians came to our fob just before. I had like 3 weeks left before I was set to roll out, and they shot a dude 3 o'clock in the morning. Balloons caught him planting a roadside bomb. They shot him once in the arm, and they scooped him up and brought him in. And so I came in and was just trying to play the nice guy. Hey, you know what? ISAF sent me here to make sure that they're treating you guys well, and just impartial. Hey, I just want to make sure that I'm not Army, I'm not military, and start building that rapport. So I'd start collecting DNA, building that rapport. And this one guy, he ended up, we ripped his phone, and he gave us information that led to 3 Taliban commanders and their phone numbers, and then eventually locations. Then it got handed off to SF or whoever, GAG, whoever it was. And apparently they got him. So that was pretty cool. You're looking at the bomb makers, the decision makers, the financiers, and they just take it up the line. So that's kind of my story.
That's pretty neat. I was in a lot of briefings to see all these networks, and it's like, this is the night we're hoping to get this guy. So we just wait for them for it to happen. And it's pretty interesting how you describe it.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
So, with the cool hua stuff also comes the not so cool stuff. There's a lot of the hurry up and wait. there's a lot of the seeing things that just you can't forget. And some of these things I didn't think that were an issue with me until I started realizing how short my temper was, how I just didn't like being around anyone. I had we talked before the show started about concealed carry and just out and about. I would go into panic mode if I was not carrying, and I would go somewhere in public just in case. Because I've also, as a cop, I've rolled into situations where I saw shootings start to occur and had to intervene. And then just a lot of the stuff that I saw, believe it or not, I saw quite a bit more violence and evil and gore as a cop than I saw in the Marine Corps or even as a contractor in Afghanistan. It was pretty bad. So some of the stuff really affected me as well. And then I found out about this amazing organization called Warriors Ascent that I started researching and doing my due diligence on. And the more I learned about it and read about you guys, and I was like, man, I want to be a part of that. And fortunately for me, I worked for Honeywell, KCNSC, which is a sponsor of Warriors Ascent. And I was part of the Veterans Employee Network. And so I suggested, hey, why don't we have an ambassador from the network so that I can be a liaison between Warriors Ascent and Honeywell. And they allowed that to happen. And then you guys invited me to well, Matt, I think I told you quite a bit at the golf scramble stuff.
Yeah, that's where I met you at the golf scramble.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I think it'd be pretty cool if you went to a cohort.
Yeah.
Just check it out. It's not saying there's something wrong with you, but I'm just saying you got to go check it out. And you did.
But there was something wrong with me. And
but
apparently
okay.
my answer was the same answer that you gave when you asked. Like I didn't want to take a seat from somebody who needed it more than I. And
I keep hearing that same thing over and over. It's just like neither one, that's the kind of personality that doesn't go get help. It's because I'm going to always be the provider and protector for everyone else. I'm going to make sure everybody's there. It's like the leaders eat last kind of scenario. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But never do you take care of yourself, And I always would be upset when people say, well, you have to put your oxygen mask on first before you put on the little kids or you're not good to them. And I'm like, yeah. I mean, that's what selfish people say.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot of people that are that way. So when you finally break down that door to get somewhere and find out, man, I deserve to be here. I needed to be here. It's helpful that I was here,
100%.
Found that.
And it was. So I started realizing, and I don't know if you remember, Mike, the first day that you're there, part of the 5-day program, you stand up and you introduce yourself to the other guys, the other 10 guys that were part of my cohort. And first thing I said when I stood up was, hey, my name is Steve Svetzka, and I'm broken. I'm pretty effed up. That's why I'm here. I'm looking for help. And you talked about the selfishness. Well, it's also just kind of the BS masculinity of, hey, I don't really need that anymore. I can be vulnerable and realize, hey, I need self-care. I need to be able to take care of myself. Because if I would have done it years ago, maybe I wouldn't have been such a failure of a father. Maybe I wouldn't, have been arrested for trying to fight a police officer while I was a cop, just things like that.
Well, and a lot of those things we don't realize are symptoms of what we're going through. We don't realize that it's part of our trauma, our combat wounds, or our wounds from just serving on the streets daily. We don't know that just isolating and being upset at people are, that's major symptomology.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem like there's anything wrong. We got guys with no legs. Those guys need help. Right. I'm fine. Right. There's nothing wrong with me. I just don't like people, Come to find out now that's not necessarily true. There's other things going on that you can have a better life.
Yes, sir. So, I mean, it was amazing. And then, so that part that I brought up about that first day of being broke and effed up, there's a reason why I say that, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But then on the last day, we gather around and we go through this activity where it's basically, hey, you need to write down all the potential causes, the triggers, if you will, or just the systematic historical things that occurred in your life that could make you the way that you are, the reason why you're there and that you need help. And it was the first time. I was 52 at the time, a couple months ago, and it was the first place in my entire life that I'd ever confessed to anybody or talked about it to anybody that I was sexually molested by an older kid in the neighborhood, and I'd never told a single soul that. So that to me says a lot, that I had so much respect for the other guys that were part of the cohort 65, that I felt so comfortable around these dudes, these warriors, these heroes, that I was like, hey, if you guys are going to tell me what's hurting you, I'm going to do the same thing. And man, it helped so much. And then now getting with my therapist, going through the electric light ERMD or EMDR. Yeah. So
movement desensitization and reprocessing.
Yeah, I can never remember that. Yes. That's part of my TBI, I think. But that was one of the things that we talked about. And my therapist, his great, his name's, can I say his name?
Yeah.
Rick Aldred, amazing therapist out in Lee Summit, Army officer. I don't hold that against him. I've asked him if he wants a Marine Corps flag in his office. Apparently he's not out of room, I think is what he said. But those are the types of things that it really brings out in you. So that now that you're vulnerable enough that you admit, hey, I needed help. Now I'm here getting help. Now you guys need to show me how to actually receive help and then just implement that help into your life day after day after day after day, and keep working that system, but also have a band of brothers that's there to smack you in the back of the head if you're starting to act the fool and not play the role again. And that's what I got.
Well, and we need not only that, but we also need a cheerleader when it's like, man, this is hard work, because it's hard work and it's not an easy button. So it doesn't fix overnight, and you need that support system. And you just found this support system. So we take to the text messaging or whatever, but it's really important to have, that continued system, because using all these tools is nothing more than starting a new habit. And so you gotta build these habits. And
correct. And it's just like anything else.
Yeah.
You go through your battle rattle, getting ready to go out on patrol or whatnot. You have to have that muscle memory, because when the shit hits the fan, you're gonna devolve to the highest training that you've been through. And so that's kind of what our goal is. And we have a text group that goes on, just like I'm sure every cohort, and we're reminding each other, hey, this isn't going to be easy, and we are here to remind guys, hey, you got to do this, you got to do that. So far it's been pretty great. I can definitively say that although I wasn't suicidal, because I've had 11 friends that have taken their own lives, both in law enforcement and the Marine Corps. There's a lot of guys that are out there. And that was one of the reasons why I felt like maybe I didn't want to steal a seat from somebody. But a good friend of mine from there, I definitively know that if it wasn't for the Warriors Ascent program, he would have finished something that he tried a few months earlier. And now he sees the positivity in things. He's working what he's supposed to be doing. He's, living intentionally. He's living purposefully. He's doing it right. He's doing what you guys taught us. And that's because you guys gave us the tools that we needed. I took my faith in Christ into it and then added on the tools and the plan that Warriors Ascent gave me. And that combination is unstoppable.
It really is.
No, and
just the knowledge, and this is something I always try to say at graduation, because everybody stands up and gives the most amazing emotional testimonies about, how their life's changed, transformed, going forward. And I always get up and say, I'm going to just tell you something. Life's going to smack you right in the face. You're going to go back to the same home with the same conditions, the same frames, the same, op tempo of life. And you have to use these new tools to navigate a different outcome.
You do. You can't do the same thing over and over
You
again.
can't just fall back into it.
Expect different results.
Exactly.
And there was one guy, he was part of a previous cohort that was there as one of the instructors, the mentors. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he kept talking about, what brought him there. And he was flight med, and he was still doing it. And I think it was on the second to the last day. I was just like, brother, why are you still doing that job then? If that's your monster that you're facing every single day and things aren't going to change, why are you still doing it? And I talked to him last week. He's got a new job. He's not in that industry anymore. And hopefully, I mean, if you're an alcoholic, you probably shouldn't work at a bar.
Yeah, right.
And so I thought that was pretty awesome. But then kind of getting back to the broken thing on the first day, at the end and Friday when Mike talked about during the graduation, we stand up and just kind of give a testimony. And I talked about the fact that, hey, when I got here, 5 short days ago, I did think I was broken. I've told people I was broken. I was effed up numerous times. But what I have come to learn over the past 5 long days of unbelievable training and brotherhood and fellowship and education was the fact that I was not broken. It was that I was bent, and it's okay to be bent because steel bends, and you can snap right back into it. And it was based upon that is kind of why I wrote that poem.
Absolutely, brother. I mean, first and foremost, having the courage and the fortitude to seek out help. I mean, that says a lot, and we see that all the time. But 2, I think the power of the program is in seeing a path forward. There are a lot of people, there's no magic or mysticism. It's, cognitive behavioral, call it the metacognitive, so a lot of, I'm not going to say psychotherapeutic, but cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavior therapy, emotion-focused therapy, mindfulness-based therapy, those are the modalities that we use. Self-care is the other one, and you touched on that, which is, I'll quote, Stephen Covey, sharpen the saw, right? 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. If you're not taking the time to, for self-care, to take care of yourself, really, I'd say the subtle mindset shift among our veterans and first responders, those much like you that are like, no, somebody else is more needful than myself. So let me put someone else ahead of me. But the fact of the matter is, if you're not showing up as your best self, you're really a liability to everybody. And I think that's the point that you're making. Absolutely.
And man, there were some things that I learned there that I'd learned before just in psychology class, but also some of the therapy that I've gone through before that just didn't stick. That was great. But there were some other things that I was shocked. And I remember, Matt, you telling me on the golf course that day, just don't expect anything. Just go with an open mind and accept it. And you're an idiot if you don't, because you have not been there before. So how do you know it's not going to work for you? And I'll tell you what, the breathing techniques and sure as crap, the yoga. Holy cow. So I actually, downstairs underneath my garage, it's what used to be it still is my gun room and my gym. But I built this thing. It was the whole size of a wall. And I got this huge wall poster of a lake in the mountains. And then I got some decking, and I built a dock, if you would, and then put some artificial turf. And I put the dock on there so I can sit in a either
serene environment. Yeah.
And I can sit, either in a lawn chair and just sit there and look at the lake in my gun room in Kansas City, and then listen, and listen to the sounds, or do my yoga down there. And that's, to me, that's really the living intentionally, making intentional decisions on, hey, you know what? I'm starting to feel like I'm getting ticked off about something. The cell phone company's got me on hold now for an hour and 27 minutes. I'm going to go down and I'm going to do my box breathing and my meditation and my yoga. And man, it makes a difference.
Yeah. Living intentionally through it. And I did it through journaling, and I still kind of like that, is when I'm like, man, I feel overwhelmed with all this stuff. What's going on? I just start journaling stuff. And then there's like an intentional, not necessarily list, but plan of how I'm going to do whatever it is and knock out all these stressors.
Yeah.
So living intentionally, man, I think that for me, the forward progress is everything. And without a flight plan, how are you going to know your route forward and what your objective is and all that? So
yeah, absolutely. And your living intentionally is going to look different than mine. And so the different ideas that you guys teach at Warriors Ascent helps you with figuring out what your flight plan is going to be, if you will.
For sure.
I'd say some of the power of the program, there's a lot to it, but it's agency. I think Matt talked about that right in the beginning, right? This notion that you've got, a say, or you have a role in your life. It's not just, hey, this has been foisted upon me, I need to suffer through these circumstances. So that's, I'll say, one facet. But, the others, I'll say a degree of control, call it self-efficacy. And I know that's what Albert Bandura, he's the psychologist that really developed that concept. And unlike what it sounds like, which is, self-efficacy is about being effective. That's part of it. But really, from like a psychological standpoint, it's the belief that you can be effective, or the belief that you can affect outcomes. And we've seen it so many times. There's so many people that come to us and they're like, well, this is just the way I'm wired. I have no say in the matter. Or, hey, this is the situation that I find myself in. There's nothing I can do to extricate myself from this.
Exactly.
When the fact of the matter is, we would never set unrealistic expectations and say that you can control every facet of your life. But the fact is, you can control more of your life than you think. And all of the things, or many of the things that you talked about, you're like, all right, hey, I'm beginning to feel agitated. A lot of people think that, well, that's just my mood, and there's nothing I just need to suffer through it. When in fact, you can do a variety of practices that kind of help increase your mood or change your emotional state. So I'd say the power of the program is in demonstrating to people that they have more say-so or more agency over facets of their life that heretofore, or up to that point, they felt that were beyond their control.
Yeah, absolutely. To me, it's just like any other relationship that you're in. If you're gonna have self-care, you have to work on your relationship with yourself, especially if you're going to be around and better for a relationship with other people. And unfortunately, law enforcement just didn't change it. I've literally had a cop die in my arms looking at this ugly mug as the life went out of his eyes and the grays that just came across his eyeballs. And then like 45 minutes later, I'm at a domestic violence call. And it's like, that's law enforcement. They put you in a position and they don't train you. And they create almost like this monster or potential monster that they just now they don't want you on the streets, and it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, to say the least.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. We kind of wrap this up, but I'm so happy that you came and shared a lot with us about what that's all about, what it's like, and how you got to Warriors Ascent and found some relief and continue to find relief through some of the practices, as do I. And we appreciate Mike for showing us those things and bringing us to that organization. So I don't know. Anything else, Mike? I'm signing off here.
No, that's it. Just, hey, if you need help, as Steve is an example, of, have the bravery, and an exemplar of bravery, and courage in seeking out the help, but then also doing the work, and that's the other big thing. It's a process, man. It's not a one and done. So if you need help, seek it out. Number two, once you get the help and find the path, stay on the path. So
yeah, absolutely. And thank you for having this. I definitely have other people that I know that I'm going to get in a headlock and drag them to this if I needed to. But having that courage, to me, it was kind of like, hey, it's just like going to the gym. The hardest thing to do is getting off the couch, putting down the bag of chips, getting to the gym. But then once you're at the gym, you feel great. And having that courage to be able to admit, no matter, if you're a pipe hitter or not, hey, I need help. I have some issues I need help with, and I'm going to seek it out. So Thank you.
Absolutely. Awesome. Appreciate you. See you next time.
Thanks for watching this episode of the Warriors Ascent podcast. We're in Kansas City helping veterans and first responders with PTS. Check us out at warriorsascent.org.